Welcome to another off-panel interview brought to you by the Indie Corner. I'm Mikey.
I'm Seamus.
I'm Rebecca.
And today, people, are back in again with another off-panel interview for you guys. Our first off-panel interview of the year, which is very exciting. And today, people, we are humbled and honored with a gracious guest who decided to take the time out of his busy schedule to talk with us. But this man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's obviously a talented and successful screenwriter known for various projects such as The Boondocks, Everybody Hates Chris, American Gods, etc., etc., etc. But also he's been making his little gamble into comic books the last couple years. You've seen his books like Killadelphia, Monarch, and now recently Blacula, Return of the King. It's none other than Mr. Rodney Barnes. How are you doing, Rodney?
Hanging in there. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Life is good. Can't complain. You're here with us, which makes it better. And I can speak for Rebecca and Seamus that we were very excited to talk with you.
Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. But yeah, without further ado, Rodney, just the way we do things here, just a little intro question just to get a little bit more about you. But it's a comic book channel, so we're gonna talk about comic books for a second. But Rodney, first question for you, sir. So how did you discover comic books? How did you discover comic books? What was your journey into nerddom?
When I was a kid, my mother used to do her lesson plans at the public library. And there was an area over in the kids section where they had Cat in the Hat and all of those books. And under those books was a box of comic books. And I used to run over there and read a bunch of books and was always sort of, I don't know if I could read because I was like 4 or 5 years old, but there was something about the idea of what they were. Like they looked a lot more exciting to me than the stuff than Curious George did. So that was the beginning of the journey, and I've been with comics ever since.
Yeah, Curious George can only take so much until you read, for first comic book.
Yeah,
I get it. Do you have like a favorite like comic book of all time that's like this is in my collection? I laugh to read it every time. Like, you have that one sentimental issue for you?
I'd say probably there's a Swamp Thing annual and Alan Moore, Down Amongst the Dead Men. With Swamp Thing, Dead Man, Phantom Stranger, and a bunch of others that were trying to get Abby's soul back. I think that's probably my favorite book and my favorite story.
My gosh, horror from the beginning. I was hoping maybe it was like it's a Superman comic or something. Not horror.
No, it's always that. It's always that.
I got you. All right. Well, that's his intro question, but now we're gonna move on to, before we talk about more comic book stuff, I want to actually get some questions about some of your your screenwriting and your producing career. But Rodney, while learning more about you, doing my research, I found out that you obviously did a lot of television work, like Everybody Hates Chris and all that, but and other various shows that we're all fans of. But most importantly, I didn't know that you wrote for the Boondocks. You had a very impactful place in Black culture for the past decade or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as a huge Boondocks fan, that was a huge part of my childhood. I shouldn't have been watching it as a kid, but I did anyway, and it was a good time. I loved it. Great characters, great social commentary, great comedy. But I wanted to know real quick, what was it like working on? What was your experience working on that show and working with Aaron McGruder and Carl Jones on that show?
It was great. I mean, I co-wrote the pilot with Aaron way back when, and we worked together from the beginning to the end. It's a great experience.
Great experience. And the thing is, it's crazy because out of all the characters and I watched your little clip on Instagram talking about your favorite characters to write. I didn't expect out of all the characters for you love to write was Uncle Ruckus. No relation of all people. And again, Carl Anthony Williams does a great job playing the character. I mean, it's great performance, so funny, very iconic. But I want to know, what was being that he's one of your favorite characters to write, what was your favorite Uncle Ruckus moment to write? In the show.
I think when Uncle Ruckus was the exorcist and he was exorcising Something out of time. I mean,
It was Stink Meaner.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that one. It wasn't that one. It was. I don't want to say the word, but he was exercise. He was performing an exorcism. The Uncle Ruckus was performing an exorcism.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's funny. I do remember that episode. If it was Stink Meaner, if it wasn't the character, either way, it was hilarious regardless. Yeah. But yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one. That's a good pick. Seamus, because we have a friend of ours, Declan, who couldn't join us, but Seamus wants to ask this question for him.
Yeah, our friend Declan, he's and me too. I watched it with him, but we were both big Winning Time fans.
Thank you.
I just thought that the show was it was so well written, and so I just love the production behind it, because the question that both me and him had was the kind of fourth wall breaking aspect something that was considered from the very beginning from the writer's room, or was it something that kind of came along during the production of the show?
We really didn't have too much of a writer's room. It was mostly myself and Max Bornstein who wrote the majority of the episodes. And I think the fourth wall breaking was mostly, I would say, an Adam McKay thing. You know, it was his style of storytelling to sort of get more information in a scene and to galvanize your attention to a character or to the frustration, the emotion, whatever it was to a character. So I would give it up mostly to Adam McKay.
Yeah, that's what me and him thought, because we both were watching it and we were like, this seems very Big Short-esque, but it's written in a way that seems very original. So we both really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Cool. Thank you very much for watching.
Yeah. And also, Declan wasn't a sports person. You converted him to being an NBA fan.
Yeah. Actually. He's a big he loves the Lakers now, which sucks for me because I'm a Celtics fan.
Yeah, though they're pretty good.
But yeah, that's it with the Declan question, right?
Yeah. That's all. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we'll move on to comic book stuff, guys. Just now we got that your screenwriting career out of the way. Even though I do have a question that is kind of weaved in with some stuff you did in television, but it's more Killadelphia related, so we're just gonna do that for later. But yeah, Rodney. So obviously, you know, when Killadelphia, just real quick, is become my favorite book of last year. It was my favorite book of last year. I read all of it. I'm caught up. It's incredible. Like it's phenomenal, and it was kind of my introduction to your writing in comic books. It's phenomenal, and I got Seamus onto it because I loved it so much. And Rebecca's tired of hearing it from my mouth because I don't shut up about the book because I think it's incredible.
I'll read it eventually, but he talks about this book all the time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. But yeah, it's something about this book I think is really special in terms of, you know, like a lot of the characters that you've created, you know, like Jimmy James, and all the Nita, like all those other characters they seem very real and very relatable in this world where this supernatural stuff is happening all around them. So I just wanted to know, like, was it a real challenge, you know, writing, you know, just like these relatable, realistic characters surrounded by the supernatural world in Killadelphia, or did it come easy? Like, what was the process like?
It was easy. I mean, it was easy. I've been rolling the story of Killadelphia around in my head since I was a teenager, probably, and just one of those things that I never knew if I would be able to do, but when the opportunity came, I sort of knew what the story was. I knew what the foundation was, so not that hard at all.
I gotcha. Okay, but is there a favorite character in Killadelphia that you enjoy either to write the most? I have an idea, but I just want to hear you say it.
Yeah, Seesaw.
Seesaw
character. Yeah.
Did you incorporate, like, because it seems like when Seesaw speaks, it feels like you're speaking through Seesaw in a way. Is there any kind of like, do you incorporate a lot of Seesaw into yourself writing into the book in terms of like how this character would be done if I was doing it?
I think each of the characters, for the most part, there's probably a little bit of me in them. I'd say Seesaw, what he represents, is more of what I've always wanted to see, more so than just me. You know, a lot of characters like him, guys who come from the street, usually get relegated to good guy, bad guy, whatever, but not really a power figure in fantasy books. So I wanted to give him enough of a presence and philosophy that a guy who looks like him and comes from where he comes from could have a major stake in a narrative.
I gotcha. What was it? How did you discover Jason, Shawn Alexander, and what was it like working with him on Killadelphia? Because his artwork is, as you know, is phenomenal. It's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, so I interviewed Jason for a art book many years ago, and found out that we only live a mile away from each other. So we started to hang out. He was on, I think he was just getting on Spawn at the time, and I wasn't in comics at all. And because we went to dinner, I would always pitch him ideas and he would pitch me ideas, and we both hated each other's ideas. And one night when we were at dinner, I pitched him Killadelphia, and he said he really liked it, but I thought he was drunk, so I didn't really follow up. And the next day he called me and he said, that thing with the vampires and the presidents, he said, have you written that down on paper? And I said, no, it's just in my head. He said, I think that's one we could do together. And I put together a couple of pages, and he sent it to Image and got it going.
Yeah, I mean, because luckily it was that simple. His artwork was actually my introduction, my official introduction. I've seen his Spawn artwork before, but I didn't really know. I didn't put the artwork to the name yet until I read your stuff. But yeah, no, he phenomenal. It's mixed media style. He's phenomenal. It's really good stuff. He really can capture like the emotion that you're trying to portray, like via the written word into the visual medium so well. So it's a really good partnership you guys have going there, for real. With this book, you have a lot of social commentary and history that you incorporate. Obviously the founding fathers element to it. That I remember when I first read that first volume, caught me off guard. I was not expecting that, and I was like, okay, let's see where it goes with it. And it just kept going and going and going. But at the same time, you utilize a lot of historical figures like the founding fathers, Toussaint Louverture as like pretty much like your Blade type character, who was really well written in that as well. And then some mythological figures like Anansi, Tituba. So, did you originally have that planned when you had the idea for Killadelphia, or was it something that kind of like naturally flowed through the course of the story creating it?
Some of it I had planned. I think along the way, when you it's one thing to have something in your head. It's another thing when you're executing it to realize that you need other characters to sort of fill out your world and to occupy other purposes. So some of the characters like Toussaint, I didn't just want to bring dead presidents back. I wanted to bring back, characters from history who actually, had a voice in history, but not necessarily in the way that sometimes we learn history. So I thought Toussaint would be a good character. And since he was known a lot for strategy and warfare and the Haitian Revolution, I thought that he would be a good character to sort of fit into our little world.
Yeah. And it kind of works well. Like you did it at the right time, because it was at the same time where I think the most recent mentions of Toussaint was in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, like kind of briefly, if you've seen the film. So yeah, like the fact that you had a part to play in, like kind of like reminding people that that history, especially with the Haitian Revolution stuff, is very great contribution. So the fact that you did that was great. Is there a founding father that you like to write the most? Because they're all written very well. So I'm curious to know which one you was like, yeah, no, this one's the most fun to write.
Probably Jefferson. I gave Jefferson a sense of humor, and that was probably the most fun. I think Adams was the most complex.
Definitely.
Washington was just what Washington is, and who else did I have? I had 4 of them. I don't remember the last one. I think they're all dead at this point. But I enjoy writing all of them. But yeah.
Yeah, Jefferson, that's an interesting one. Because Jefferson's like, again, he's very funny the way you write him, but he's also just a sad man, He's just like, he's a sad dude. You kind of feel for him a little bit.
I like how Jefferson's like the sad clown of the founding fathers. Who's always like, he's using humor to keep that mask up, and I was like, oh, that's so good. I love that.
But yeah, no, okay, that's interesting. All right, so this is where like my other question kind of falls into like your screenwriting a little bit, but just to off rip, like Seesaw is a great character. I love he's my second favorite actually of ones rewritten in Killadelphia. My first favorite, my number one, is actually Anansi. I love the way you write Anansi. He's very kind of complex, he's very snarky, very like got some swag to him. Very straight to the point. I love the way you write him that way. But then while I was doing my research, I noticed that you also wrote for American Gods as well, which is one of my favorite shows that I've watched in the past couple years. And to the point where Mr. Nancy, played by the great Orlando Jones, is one of my favorite fictional characters in television. I think you did a great job writing him. I love that interpretation of the Anansi mythological figure so much. As well as this version too. So I wanted to ask, because obviously there are like when you're dealing with different aspects of the same character, from different contexts, there can be sometimes I don't know for you, but for me, I would feel like maybe be a challenge to like differentiate the two, even though it comes from the same type of folklore. So I wanted to know just like how did you differentiate the two characters despite their obvious similarities coming from West African mythology?
I tried to build more of a connection with, I guess, Anansi to the people and his worshipers. That there was more personal connection. In a few of the issues, I talked to Norse gods, Greek gods, different African gods. The Western idea of what some religions are. And I just felt like Anansi, and yes, I was inspired somewhat by Orlando's portrayal, some of the choices that he made, and just making it more personal. It's like he has a sense of humor. He's probably the most human god, and the most relatable by the way that he speaks to people and the way that he feels for his worshipers.
Yeah, no, I can definitely feel that when I read it, because like the way you as you put it, you pretty much made a god feel more human than the other gods that show up, to the point where like when I read Anansi, like I know I have like 12 homies that I grew up with that sound like Anansi and talk like the way Anansi talks. So that's why I love him so much. And again, like when you mentioned like Orlando's performance did have a play for the inspiration. Like you can, because when I was reading, I was like, this reminds me so much, a little bit of Mr. Nancy there. And when I finally wrote him, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. There's a little bit of synergy there, a little bit. But yeah, no, it's great work. And I don't know even know if you'd like this or not, but it kind of shoots the idea in my brain where it's like this, because Anansi's a god, this could be this version of Mr. Nancy, and this Anansi could be the same one, but because these gods are omniscient, they can be anywhere at any time. So it's I think it's a cool way to maybe interpret that.
I know that you've spoken about how like Stephen King is a big influence on your horror writing, and I was wondering if there are any other big kind of horror influences that you kind of touch on when you're writing Killadelphia.
I'd say I'm a big Edgar Allan Poe fan. I'm a Neil Gaiman fan. I am an aforementioned Alan Moore fan. Man, there's so many. Dean Koontz, Richard Matheson, Tananarive Due, Octavia Butler. There's so many writers, horror writers that as a kid kept me going and inspired me to want to be a part of telling stories, horror stories, writing horror stories. That there's too many to name, but of course Stephen King is at the top.
Hard to beat Stephen King.
Hard to beat Stephen.
Hard to beat him, yeah. And I did catch that thing you post on IG where you first met Stephen King and how you kind of weaseled your way in to getting him.
True story. Videotape it back.
Oh man, it's crazy. But yeah, nah, it's that's really interesting. Okay, I have to ask this question because it's just knowing the way Killadelphia has turned from when it started till now. I gotta ask, man. Be real with me. How do you manage to get Spawn and Savage Dragon in this book? How do you convince Todd and Eric to have you borrow their characters?
That was mostly I put that on Jason. I mean, Jason's relationship with Todd doing Spawn and opened that door, and Jason's relationship with Eric Larson. That relationship, Jason and I had a conversation with how to, every time we do a story arc, we try to figure out a way to do something different. And at a certain point, when you see two guys in suits running around, you say, okay, I've seen enough of this.
Of course.
Switch it up. How can we now? It became like some arcs are the fantasy arc when Seesaw's talking to Jesus and various religious deities, and then you have other ones where it's more somber. And we wanted one that felt more comic booky. We wanted one that felt like traditional horror comics used to be back in the day. So being able to get Savage Dragon and Spawn and Blacula and Dracula and whoever else will come along the way made it feel like we could just have some fun and not so much talking about history and dower and all of that.
And that's the thing, you kept it. In fact, I appreciate the fact that you kept it fresh, bringing those characters in, and it made it, like, not saying it wasn't fun before, but it made it twice as more fun now. To give something me and Seamus to talk about for a little bit, because Spawn is in Killadelphia. That's crazy. And Savage Dragon. It was just because we're fans of those characters, so it was just kind of crazy that, like, we just see him incorporated in this book. He managed to pull that off thanks to Jason. Yeah. Is there another? I'm just curious though. I mean, you don't have to say anything. You can blink twice for yes and once for no. But is there another character that's known in Image that will appear in Killadelphia in the future?
I mean, we're always trying. We're always trying to figure out a way that we're very appreciative to Image for helping us and allowing us to even tell the story in the first place. So trying to find other characters and other ways to say thank you, is always our goal.
Of course. All right. So it's not any young blood. All right. Okay.
Not yet. Not yet.
Young blood.
Listen, I mean, I was like, listen, my personal opinion. I mean, if you're gonna take some notes,
yeah. Don't take notes.
I would say the darkness. The darkness is my personal favorite. So I think it would work. I think it would work well within the Killaverse. I think so. It's pointed out there. All right, just my last question in terms of Killadelphia. Well, first off, I want to say congratulations, just because I think it was around like last year, 2 years ago. I forget when this was announced, but the fact that Killadelphia is going to be adapted to a television series, I believe.
We're working on it. Yeah,
we're okay. I wasn't sure if it was a television series or a movie, but well, congrats on that anyway. That's great. But I wanted to touch on something specific about it. I'm not going to ask you about progress and stuff, because I know for a fact you can't tell us anything anyway. Because so that's all good. But I'll keep respectful on that account. But I saw an interview you did with Fantastic Frankie. Shout out to her. And you mentioned the fact that, and I told Seamus this last night, and he was very, very upset to hear this, but the fact that Andre Braugher, recently departed Andre Braugher was either was the top choice or was going to be our James Sangster in this production. So I was just curious to know, like, what was the experience, meeting him and talking to him about the project, and what was something about, did he give any ideas about what he would do with the character from the time that you got to speak with him?
Yeah, Andre was fantastic. We talked. I was a huge fan of Homicide: Life on the Street, and that and Glory, and a bunch of other things he did. And he read Killadelphia and was really, really took to it, and loved Seesaw. He actually loved that. Was his character. It's like he's like, he wishes he was 25 years younger so he could play Seesaw. But no, he just he had a really actory way, like a really grounded way of approaching James Sangster, and from the place of a real actor's perspective, and just having the honor and the privilege of listening to him talk about a character that, like I said, I've been carrying around in my head for 25, 30 years, was an honor of itself. And I only regret that I never got an opportunity to see him do it.
Yeah, I mean, but I told Seamus last night about it. He was very upset because we know that you modeled the character, like you and Jason modeled the character after Phil Morris. So I could only think of Phil Morris. Well, I was like, if I want a live action James Sangster, clearly it's Phil Morris. But when I heard that you're going to do Andre, I was like, that works so well, knowing what Andre's performance is and what he's done. It's just So it's unfortunate. It kind of hurt that we won't see it, but I mean, I'm just happy that you at least had to share, some conversations and thoughts with him, and the fact that he really cared about the material and wanted to bring it to life as best he could is amazing. So that's awesome, Rodney, for real. All right, so I think that's enough with the Killadelphia stuff. I think we've talked enough about Killadelphia. Again, we love it. We love it. It's our favorite book here. So we'd love to talk about more Killadelphia, but we want to talk about something else you've done recently, which is kind of how we connected us to getting this interview in the first place. But Seamus and I, you picked us to get your Blacula book.
Yes, sir.
It's we read it, and we shouted you out on my social media actually, because we did a video unboxing the whole thing, and Seamus gave a little review for it. And first off, thank you, Rodney, for picking us, because again, you didn't have to, but you did, which is great, and now you're getting a free promotion out of it, which is awesome.
You're welcome.
Me and Seamus took the time to read it. I actually just finished reading it before starting this podcast, for this interview. Phenomenal. I think it's really something special, especially because it's from knowing about like stuff with I remember reading or watching something about how you discovered Blacula in the first place, and you can see that love and care was taken into this, and that also spread to Jason too, because the artwork is phenomenal in this. I think he leveled up in this then with his Killadelphia stuff somehow. I think it's incredible. I just wanted my one question for Blacula was what was your favorite part, reimagining, Blacula as a blaxploitation horror icon, pretty much, to like a modern horror character in a comic book or a graphic novel?
I think for me, it was more of my relationship with blaxploitation has always been, I appreciated it certainly when I was younger, and I always wanted to go in, if I could extricate the parts that were problematic and highlight and elevate, the late great William Marshall, who played Prince Mamuwalde. I thought he brought as much gravitas to the character as Bela Lugosi did to Dracula. And I just wanted to be able to write the character in such a way that it was an homage to him and some sense of appreciation for the amount of effort I think he put into the character.
Yeah, and you could definitely feel that. I mean, Blacula in this is the thing is like that. Seamus, I know you watched it way before we did. Me and Rebecca actually.
I got the book and I was like, well, I gotta watch the original before I read the book, because it was always on my list on Letterboxd of like horror movies I need to see, and I really ended up appreciating it in the same way, where I was like, wow, Prince Manuwalde's performance is insane. This is good. And it was like, I could totally tell why you gravitated towards like elevating it in the way that you did in Return of the King.
Well, thank you.
And I had the same thought too. I was like, I've always heard of Blacula my whole life, but I've never actually touched it. So thank you, Tubi. We're not sponsored by you, but thank you for having Blacula. Because me and Rebecca actually watched it together. And as you said, like it's a blaxploitation film, so like some of it doesn't really age well. So it makes sense why you had to change some stuff up. But now after watching it and now reading it, I can definitely tell like the actor's performance, you tried to capture that as best as you could to get that same familiar feel people have seen the film before reading the book, which I think you captured great. I mean, I think Mamuwalde is a great character, and also love a good revenge story. So I appreciated that more reading this too. I mean, I thought it was phenomenal. Rebecca, you'll get a chance to read it hopefully someday. But you've watched the movie, so that's cool.
Yeah, I have watched the movie, so I do need to read the sequel now.
Yeah. I do also want to ask as well because obviously Killadelphia I believe 34 came out I believe some either this month or late last month and it was revealed that Mama Walde's has shown up in Philly to get involved with everybody else in Philadelphia. So I just want to know, was it like why incorporate this character that you've kind of reimagined into the Killaverse? Like what prompted you to make that decision?
Well, it sort of makes sense that if you've got a book that is made up primarily of African American vampires, got an African American vampire that is typically known as Blacula, that you sort of kind of want to try to fit that character in. I mean, Dracula's coming, spoiler alert, but
yeah,
without putting Blacula in and just highlighting Dracula, it's almost like I'm ignoring the character that that I really appreciate so much. So I felt like it was an opportunity. I didn't want to let it go by.
Yeah, I mean, so basically the answer is might as well, pretty much.
Yeah,
yeah. And it works. And like if I'm pitching this to somebody, be like, hey, so this whole Killadelphia storyline, Blacula shows up. They're probably like, huh? But then like when you read along, it works so well. Like he just appears and he's here now, and it works.
Yeah. Like after reading Return of the King, I was arguably more hyped to see Blacula in Killadelphia than I was at the time to see Spawn in Killadelphia. Because I was like, after reading Return of the King, I'm like, holy shit. This is gonna be a banger coming up with Dracula and Blacula.
Thank you. I mean, I thought you would say it'd be unusual to have Thomas Jefferson show up in a book about vampires, but yes, Blacula.
As soon as you see John Adams' bald head, you're kind of like on the ride. You're like, Thomas Jefferson's soon to follow. We're good.
But yeah, man. But yeah, listen. I mean, I could praise this book all day. It's phenomenal. I was just curious. I just thought about it, but is there gonna be like a sequel in the works to this, or just kind of like a one and done type deal?
I'd like to be able to do a couple of more. It's always with finances. That's a very expensive book to do, and I would love to be able to do more. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I will be picking it up for sure.
Yeah.
After.
The werewolves got me hype. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Last page.
We were just talking about that before we started. We're just like, yo, what's this werewolf deal gonna happen? Like but yeah, I mean, it's good stuff all around. I know Rebecca, you have some questions. This is particularly pertaining to your podcast, Runful, that I put Rebecca on. So it comes full circle. But Rebecca,
I do like a good paranormal podcast. But yeah, so you have this, like I just said, paranormal podcast called Runful, where you tell scary stories about various myths and legends. And I think if you were to take that podcast at face value, you could easily argue that you're one of the most haunted men in America, next to Zach Bagans. But I have to ask, have you ever actually had a paranormal experience?
I'm not sure. I like to say that I did as a kid, but I don't know if it was real, but I like to think that it was.
Got it.
I was one of those kids that wanted to see a UFO. Like I wanted to go in the woods and see something crazy. And, this was a different period of time. I see crazy things every day now, but I wanted to see like something scary as a kid. And, I think there are probably a couple instances where I think things happened and went bump in the night. But if you ask the adult me, I'm not sure if it really happened. But I won't tell the kid though.
Exactly.
Got it. And then along with that, was there a particular story or legend that really left an impact on you, especially as a child?
My grandmother told me a story once. I think it's coming up on the show, when she was a girl and she got lost in the woods, and there was these trees that lit up and led her home. And that always stuck in my head. You know, it was a weird, sometimes when someone's telling you a story and they're not trying to scare you and they just tell you in a matter-of-factly type of way, it's actually scarier than someone trying to scare you.
Yeah.
And that story probably was the first that was like, okay, you know, this is fun. It's scary, but it's fun.
I mean, and just to go off of go off of that, I'm a big fan of Runful. I mean, I listen to it every Tuesday, so it's great stuff, and it kind of again showed me what it proved yourself in Killadelphia that you could tell you know how to tell a story, dude. I was just curious about how do you find it transitioning now from doing the writing like books to now doing audio format? Like, what was the process with that?
It's fun because we have some really great writers, and we run it like I run a writer's room, and you know, they pitch ideas for stories, and we sort of talk about them and try to make them. There's a formula to Runful, you know, as much heart and humanity as there is horror, and we try to find folk legends and things that have sort of fallen through the cracks of history, and modernize them, and you know, make them fun and make them like a half hour long. And so it's sort of my way. Like, I always wish I would have grown up and either ran or worked on Tales from the Crypt or Twilight or one of those anthology series. And this is an opportunity in my own way to sort of get a crack at that.
And it feels that way too when you listen to it. It's like a Twilight Zone type deal. I like that a lot. I mean, I was telling Rebecca actually yesterday. I was like, listen, I'm a gullible person because you the way you formatted these stories, so sometimes where you're even putting yourself into like it's like actual witness account that you saw. You got me convinced sometimes, man, that you've seen these things, man. I've been making a list of like places not to go to that you described because I don't want to encounter any of this stuff. But
it's fun, man. You don't want to see a skinwalker. You don't want to see.
Oh, dude, we have.
You don't want to see a blue hag. Come on.
We have a friend, Anna, who is like deathly afraid of skinwalkers to the point where like we can't say skinwalker around her, or she'll be like, "You're gonna curse me." And I'm like, "But wouldn't it be cool?
Wouldn't it
a
be
skinwalker cool? Objectively sounds cool."
It does. Skinwalkers, boo hags, all of these things. Mountain Devil. I forget that one.
That Mountain Devil episode was crazy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nah, listen, man, no Voodoo Village for me. No Rougarou. No. Okay. I already knew about La Llorona, all right, beforehand. Yeah. All right. And your interpretation of that I thought was so interesting. And the fact that, like, again, I was like, oh my God, his assistant has La Llorona in her house right now. They get her kid. You're bugging. I would never do that. Tell her to run. I was gonna be like, yo, when we have Rodney Barnes, I'm gonna tell your former assistant to get out of there. Run, right?
Run, fool. Yeah.
Exactly. Stay on brand with the name. But yeah, no, it's a phenomenal podcast. And I was also telling Rebecca and Seamus, like, just as a remark that I thought it was just gonna be a whole one season thing. You would take a break for a while, then come back. But it's been consistent. You've been dropping it every week.
And yeah, 48. I think we're doing 48, and then we may not take a break. We may just keep going.
Wow. Yeah, man. It's just listen. as a consumer of the media, I am very excited. It's not gonna really end, not for a little bit, you know. So that's good stuff. But yeah, all right. I have like one last question for you, and then we'll send you on your way to make more great books and stories and all that stuff, man. But just simple question. Well, what would you give? What advice would you give for aspiring writers wanting to get into not comic books but also just screenwriting and anything? What do you give advice for any future writers?
I always say to find your voice. It sounds cliche, but I don't think Hollywood buys writers as much as it does voices. I think there's certain guys like Jordan Peele or that you just know when you read or see a Jordan Peele project because he just put out a book. And I think that if you just duplicate what somebody else did, that probably won't take you very far. I think you'll learn more opening up yourself and really giving the world your version of whatever your story is, whether it's comedy, whether it's horror, drama, whatever it is, just being able to give the world a piece of you. And that is the thing that separates you from me and everybody else.
Yeah. Authenticity. That's another way to put it. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, Rodney. Well, that's all we've got. We've ran through. We didn't think we'd go through all these questions. I was very impressed. We
Very
got this
very
efficient. But yeah, man. Listen, thank you so much for joining us on our little interview. Great talking with you. Also shout out to your assistant Carlos for making this process a lot easier. He's a great help. So we really appreciate it. I just want to let the people know where they can find you real quick.
At the Rodney Barnes on Instagram and Twitter, and I think shoprodneybarnes.com for if you want any of the books.
I gotcha. And I will put links in the description so people can buy Killadelphia, listen to Runful, buy Blacula, because that's when we were talking on IG after I made that video and I posted on my social, which you kindly reposted. Me and Seamus, I was being serious. We really appreciate what you're doing in terms of what you're doing in comics and in terms of horror especially. And as an aspiring creator myself, you've inspired a lot of my stuff that I'm trying to put out in the future. So yeah, it's been a real joy to have you talk with us, and yeah, it means a lot, not just to me, but for I guess the rest of us as well. So
likewise, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the support.
Of course. Yeah, so people buy Runful, buy Killadelphia, follow this man, listen to Runful. Don't if you get Larry in your house, don't let her out. Don't let her do
Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah. But as always, people check out all of our content, comment, like, subscribe. If you listen, when Rodney drops another thing that's important, we will get him on again, maybe if he has the time. but check out our Deadly Class stuff, check out our Transformers stuff, check out the Indie Corner After Dark, check out the other off-panel interviews that we've done as well. It means the world to us. Again, the fact that we have people like Rodney Barnes to come and talk with the little guys like us to share our love of comics. It means the world, and the fact that y'all support us is great. And yeah, as always, people, get home safe. And thank you again, Rodney, again. And we will catch y'all next time. All right. Later.
Take it easy.